I can remember when he showed up
In
at
college.
a college football game, and he hadn't been there, but I'm now on a full scholarship, and I'm actually having a great season, and he's reading about me down in Florida. And he shows up. I didn't even know he's coming. I walk out of the locker room, and there he is, and my mom. And I came out excited we'd won. I'd thrown touchdown passes. I don't know. Probably threw 8 or 9 touchdown passes, right? I don't know. I do remember walking out. It was a good game and I always loved seeing my mom. But there's Dad. And I can remember, I can see it in my mind's eye right now, walking out of the locker room. I'm like, what are you doing here? Actually, honestly, what the blank are you doing here? I didn't say that to him.
So
I don't want
thinking,
you here, but
yeah.
I immediately went to, oh, now you're going to show. It connected all the dots. You're here because now you're reading about me, and you're thinking I'm going to be possibly making you some money playing after college. So I was mad. And he went to dinner with us that night, and I'm like, this is weird. Totally resentful.
Yeah.
I covered it up. I was your, all-American quarterback type kid, trying to put on the facade.
From the Family Life Podcast Network, this is Family Life Blended. I'm Ron Deal. This podcast brings together timeless wisdom and practical help and hope to blended families and those who love them. All of us have known somebody who's been through a divorce with kids. Maybe that's your situation. Well, have you ever wondered what your kids' experience is of your divorce? And what if you get married and there's now a step-parent in their life? We're going to be talking about that today. Because 10 to 20% of all kids have a step-parent right now. A third will have by the time they're 18. And 50% of all of us in the United States will have a step-parent at some point in our lifetime. Dave Wilson had a step-parent. Dave and his wife, Ann, have been leaders for the last 30 years at Kensington Church in Detroit. He's the former chaplain with the Detroit Lions. They've written a book together called Vertical Marriage. And most recently, they've become the hosts of the nationally syndicated program FamilyLife Today. The co-host of that program, Bob Lapine, joined me as I talked with Dave and Ann. I asked Dave to set the stage for us and tell us how he found out that his parents were divorcing.
Yeah, it was interesting. It's the early 60s. And, back then, I honestly don't remember a divorced family. I know in my elementary school, I was the only kid in the classroom, 30, 35 kids with not a dad at home. Different day to day, but that was very unique. We lived in New Jersey at the time. I was born there. My dad was an airline pilot with Eastern Airlines. Anybody old enough in this room to remember Eastern?
I do remember
Sadly,
them.
yes.
Yeah. And so it was interesting at that time, even though I was very young, I didn't appreciate it, but we were sort of a wealthy family. He actually built homes on the side in a gated community in New Jersey and flew out of, New York. And so I grew up sort of in a big house with 2 older brothers and a sister. They were actually 10 to 12 to 14 years older than me, and then a little brother about a year and a half younger than me. And, at that time, you would have looked at our family. The Wilsons were like the perfect American family.
From the outside, it looked really good. Yeah.
Really, really good. Wealthy and nice home. And again, gated community. And it just looked like a perfect marriage. And I actually sort of thought that as a little kid, because it's interesting. I blocked a lot of this out. It's hard sometimes to even remember. But I do remember fights. Yelling, a lot of alcohol. I remember my brothers taking me and my sister away from the family room upstairs to get away from the fights from between mom and dad. And my dad was a drinker, and he wasn't a happy drunk. He was a mean, sort of would get out of control. And that's what I remember as a little boy.
So you had 3 older siblings.
Yep.
And 1 younger sibling, right? So
Yep.
there's 5 of you. You're number 4 in the picture.
My mom called it 4 jacks and a queen. I remember her saying that growing up,
That's good.
And that was 4 boys and a little girl.
You mentioned from the outside your family looked really good. I wonder, sometimes children's experience of their family prior to a divorce, a breakup, is, we're really good. You remember some hard things, some fights.
Yeah.
But looking back, are you one of those kids, like you just didn't see it coming?
Oh, I did not see it coming. In fact, the night it happened was Christmas Eve. The whole family went to church. I mean, it's one of these picturesque moments. I can see snow falling, walking in at like the midnight mass type deal. It's probably 10 or 11 o'clock at night. My little brother, Craig, and I got baptized that night. The whole family's there. We all come back to the house. Again, big house. We walk in, and while we were gone, Santa had shown up, I thought, and the entire family room is just presents everywhere, more presents than I'd ever seen in my life. And we were told, open them. Tonight, not tomorrow, tonight. So, of course, a little 5, 6, 7-year-old kid is just ripping things apart, and every gift I could ever imagine we got that year. And you can imagine why. I didn't know. The next morning, Christmas Day, woke up, Dad was gone. And it was his last hurrah. The church service, the baptism, the gifts were sort of see you later. Of course, we woke up Christmas morning, and I can remember sort of asking my mom, where's Dad? And that's when she said, well, he's gone. Of course, I didn't know forever, but eventually I realized that my little brother, he's gone. We didn't really know what the word divorce meant, but eventually that's what it ended up being. We're without a dad.
Do you remember any particular emotions at that point in time? Now, I know you're still making sense of it. You're 7, 6, something around that age range. And it's hard sometimes to make sense of things when you're that age. But looking back, do you remember any particular emotions that stood out?
Again, a lot of it I don't remember. I didn't get angry. I was discouraged. I just remember thinking, in one way, well, he'll be back. He's not gone. But I do remember over time, he didn't come back. And when he did, it was pop in, pop out. And I can remember fights again. It was not a fun moment when he would come in. And I also remember he didn't seem to pay any attention to me and Craig. He was there to talk to my mom, whatever, and go. They were obviously, now I know, they're still working through the details of what this is going to look like, but he was off. And I found out later he was off with girlfriends. He had mistresses. I didn't know till I was probably 28, 30 years old. I'm looking over at Ann because she was part of the world now, as my sister told me, I don't know if you know this, but Dad used to take you and Craig on vacations with his girlfriends when he was still married to Mom, at 5, 4, 6 years old.
Yeah.
I'm like, what are you talking? I didn't remember any of that. But we would go on trips with Dad's mistresses.
And so just real quickly, fast forward to 28, 30 years of age, you find out there's more to the betrayal.
Oh, found out a lot more.
Yeah.
And it's interesting, Ron. I think one of the big pieces that Dave didn't mention was something that happened to his brother very soon after the divorce.
Yeah, well, I mean, the short story was my mom now is a single mom. And again, back in the 60s, not a whole lot of help for her.
Right.
And she's like, how am I going to rebuild my life? My 2 brothers and older sister were off to college and beyond. So they were that much older. So it was really Mom and myself and Craig, and we moved to Ohio. Why Ohio? That's where her parents lived. So we moved to get help and start a new life. And so that's traumatic.
Yes.
Again, that's the only thing I've known is my really nice home. And so we move. And I do remember the drive. I remember here, you talk about traumatic, you would think nothing, but at that time I had a dog I loved, a German Shepherd named Sarge. Somehow he didn't make it to Ohio. And again, I lose my dad, lose the marriage, and then probably, I don't know exact timeline, 3 to 4 months later, we find out Craig has leukemia.
Wow.
And within 6 weeks, he dies.
Wow.
There's no bone marrow transplants back then. It was very quick and obviously traumatic as I walk through the divorce, the move. Now my best friend, my little brother's gone, and it's just Mom and I.
Okay, so let me just recap what I'm hearing. And by the way, Bob, I'll just mention that we have a resource at Family Life called Life in a Blender. And it's written for children who are living in a step family to help them make sense of their life and some of the things that they experience. And one of the things that we talk about are the big 5 emotions. Loss and sadness are 2 of those. So let's just recap the story that we have so far. Life was one thing prior to Dad leaving. But once he left and the divorce took place, there was a cascade of loss for you. Yeah. Different home, different family income level. Mom and Dad are not together. When Dad's back, he's not really tuning into you. You've lost him even when he's there. There's confusion and discouragement. So move to a new place, lose your dog in the process. And then a huge loss for the family is the loss of your younger brother. I'm just sitting here taking that in from your vantage point. I'm listening to all the transition and the pain that goes along with that and how heavy that is. And I'm also aware that your mother, who is the primary caregiver for you at that point in time, has gone through tremendous, tremendous loss herself.
Right.
I have lost a child, and so I know what that is to be in her shoes, losing a child. To have that on top of loss of our marriage, loss of our family, loss of position, friends, place of work, all the stuff that's wrapped into that, I can't imagine how your mom functioned. And so let's go inside that a little bit for you. What was that like? What was parenting like at that point in your life? What was your relationship with your mom? How did that morph and change? How did you guys survive all of this together?
You know, my mom was everything. Clung to her. She was my security, obviously. I felt like she did the same with me. It was, we only had each other at that point after Craigie was gone. So, yeah, I loved her dearly. I always felt loved by her. She was my biggest cheerleader my whole life. But I can remember even as I hit 10 and 12 and 13, just watching the sadness. She was very lonely. Felt that in the home. Wanted to be there for her, wanted to help her. I remember constantly she would say, "You're the man of the house." And I'm 12. And I'm like, I don't want to be the man of the house, but I had to be, and so.
What do you mean had to be? I mean, unpack that for a minute.
I mean, there was nobody else there. There was no other man. She dated a little bit, but nobody really walked into our life.
So there was a strong sense of obligation and responsibility in you.
Yeah.
Not necessarily something you really chose or would have chosen, but yet you knew if you didn't do it.
Right.
Let's paint that scenario for a second, because sometimes that's helpful to even understand how you ended up making some of the choices you made as a kid. Like, what if I don't do this for Mom? What would have happened?
I really felt like she needed me to be strong. Again, 13, 12.
Yeah.
As I went into middle school and high school, I felt like she's stable but unstable.
Yeah.
And I can't be unstable. This really is a counseling session.
Do you think your relationship with her ever got unhealthy? Was she ever codependent? Was there ever a situation where she was counting on you for more than a mom ought to be counting on a 12-year-old boy?
I'm wondering what my wife's thinking right now.
She just moved up to the microphone because I think she's got an answer for
I didn't
this.
even look over there. Do you notice that? I didn't even want to see what she's going to say.
Yeah.
I think I know what she's going to say.
Yeah, I think the answer to that would be yes.
Yeah.
I think she was so broken, so lonely, so hurting. I remember Dave's stepmom telling me, this is an interesting, just side note, that Dave went on the honeymoon of his dad and stepmom, which is
to Europe.
yeah.
As a pilot, I could fly free with them. And
sure.
And she was in the airlines too, and so she said he couldn't sleep by himself, and she realized that Dave had been sleeping with his mom, and he was what, 12?
I think I was 12.
Yeah.
Sort of funny. I didn't know my dad's on a honeymoon with his new wife. I just thought we're going on a trip. I found that out years later. Because Beata, that's my stepmother, she was like, "Do you realize that on our honeymoon night, you came walking in our hotel room?" I had a hotel room across the hall. Of course, we're in Europe, and I'm scared anyway.
Yeah.
But I
Yeah,
go
any kid
knocking on
would
the
be.
door saying, "Can I sleep in here?" And, it's sort of funny now, but that gives you an idea
Sure.
where I was, where they were. And, I grew up.
And it was there wasn't anything inappropriate that happened sleeping with his mom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it just represented that's what you were used to at that point in time.
Yes.
My comment about your mom is, of course, there was this strong deeply connected reliance on her son. I don't know how you survive that sort of loss, that Mount Kilimanjaro of loss, without finding something you hold on to, right? And so, of course, that was the nature of your relationship. And, of course, you felt a great sense of responsibility and obligation to her. And I think sometimes it's easy for us to step outside people's lives and just judge that. What? You were sleeping? Somehow you were overly connected. You know what? That's a little bit of God's grace for people sometimes. And when you get behind it and you understand how much loss is in this story, nobody wants more loss. That's one of the things we know about kids in blended families is they don't want more loss. And yet it seems that sometimes every little turn, every little twist becomes a little bit more loss. So you go with your dad and you find out, well, that was him investing in somebody else, not really investing in me. Like I'm there, but we're not connected. And so that's an ongoing narrative that gets in the way. And I'm curious about that, your relationship with your dad through your adolescent years. What was that like?
It was pretty non-existent. He would fly up to Ohio on a trip or whatever, and I don't know the exact timeline, but I saw him maybe once or twice a year for a day, or really an evening, and again.
And you would fly down at Christmas.
Yeah. But when he would come up, it would usually get ugly. He would drink. It would get loud. I'd go hide in the bedroom, wait till it was over, till the storm cleared. So that was my experience with my dad. I remember that in middle school, then high school, and then I hated this. Right after the divorce, 7, 8, 9 years old, I, for whatever reason, had to go see my dad at Christmas. And I would fly to Miami, Florida. Now he's in Miami flying out on Christmas morning from Winter Wonderland in Ohio to palm trees in Florida by myself. And back then, nobody flew on Christmas Day. So the flight attendants, I could tell they felt sorry for me. They'd let me sit in first class, nobody on the plane. And they would be assigned to me to take care of this little boy, getting him to his dad's. And I can remember getting in his car, nice car, rich, living the life, and looking at these palm trees going, what am I doing here? I don't want to be here. I want to be home. I want to be in Ohio. I want to be, my home at Christmas. And I have to go see my dad for 3 or 4 days. So it was a trip or two, and then Christmas every year.
I'm hearing some of those other big 5 emotions. Confusion, like here I am, I have to do this, but I don't want to do this. And then when I get here, I realize how much he has financially, et cetera, and I'm aware.
And you had nothing back with your mom.
Right. And Mom and I got nothing. And what a contrast. And, again, it's because he left us.
Right.
Yeah?
Oh, yeah.
There had to be some real anger or hurt towards him.
And one of the reasons I blocked having a relationship. I really think he wanted one, and he was doing what he could to do that. He wasn't there a lot, but when we were together, I could tell. I really did have a sense he loves me. He really does love me. He wants good for me. Almost a sense I think he feels bad about what happened, but we never talked about it. Through high school, through college, till we got married, never once was there a conversation with Dad about the divorce, about any of that. There were many with my mom. Now, she wasn't a mean, bitter, your dad's an idiot type mom. She honored him, but I was confused. I never really understood.
And no trust. You couldn't have trusted your dad. And that's the reason there's no relationship.
Right.
He left when you were 7.
Right.
What are you going to trust him with trying to have a relationship with? No, that doesn't make any sense.
And I'm also wondering about loyalty to Mom. How would you have felt if you'd have drawn close to your dad? Like, Mom needs me. Mom's relying on me. That would be, in a way, putting her in jeopardy.
Yeah, treasonous.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I also felt that when Dad got remarried. I felt like I can't like her because that's
betrayal.
Betrayal to my mom.
To your mom, yeah.
And my mom would ask when I would come home, how's Beata? And I'd be like, oh, she's okay.
Yeah, and isn't that interesting? Like, all she had to do was ask what could be a very neutral question on the surface, but it very much isn't neutral. In your heart. Like, even if she's not really saying, do you love her?
Right.
You felt like she was saying you love her. And so you're in this love conflict that mom needs me. She's got nothing but me. So I'm definitely favoring here.
We've touched on these 5 emotions that you talk about. Just list them for us. What are the 5?
Their loss and the sadness that goes along with that loss, right? Those are related. Fear. And we've heard that, and we haven't talked about it yet, but it's the fear of more loss, the fear of, in this case, the fear of hurting mom if I enjoy my stepmom, fear of hurting mom if I enjoy my dad and draw close to him. Guilt, this sense of responsibility that you had towards your mom is one example of, boy, I feel guilty if I don't fulfill that responsibility. So it's going to change who I am and how I act and how I live my life. And then the confusion piece of, how do I deal with all this? What does it mean? Why did Dad leave? What does this mean for me and the future of our family and relationships? Just a lot of confusion.
And the booklet, it's really a small book that you've written for kids, helps them unpack these emotions and put names to these emotions so they can go, oh, I'm not abnormal because of the things I'm feeling, and maybe I can even understand what it is I'm feeling and put some categories to it rather than just feeling it.
And as a parent, Ron, is that our responsibility to ask those questions? Is this a counseling situation?
I'm so glad you brought that up because there's a secondary purpose in this booklet. We actually have a parent discussion guide with it so that parents are moving towards the heart of their child, the experience of their child. We want to give the kids words to help them go, yeah, that is what I'm feeling. And we also want to help the parents say, is that what you're feeling? Is this your experience? We give them a few questions, the parents, to ask their child after they read it so that you can move toward their heart. What we're doing here today with Dave is what we would love to see happen thousands of times around the world, one parent towards their own child.
Oh, if this would have been around when I was 10 years old, oh my gosh, there was nothing like this.
One of the things that's interesting is that we haven't talked about yet is just how you coped with all this. I mean, I've heard you in the past in different venues say different things. So let me just toss a couple of words at you.
Okay.
I'm not exactly sure these are right, and you can comment on those.
All right.
I heard you say you were jealous of your dad's new wife, and they had she had a son, I believe. She had a stepbrother.
Yeah, I had a stepbrother.
Okay, and so a little jealous of how Dad spent time and invested in them, his new family, and not in you.
Right.
And so it made it hard for you to move toward them. So part of your coping was to just withdraw and retreat and stay away.
Oh, definitely. I stayed away. I really lived in a little cocoon with my mom up in Ohio. My dad would come in every once in a while. I didn't want to go down and see them now in Miami. Again, I was so sad and felt betrayed and abandoned.
Yeah.
I did. It was sort of mandated I go see them. I'm glad I did now, but it wasn't something I look forward to.
Did you have any kind of relationship with your stepbrother?
Very little. I can remember as we got into high school and college age, we would go out and party. That's what I remember.
He lived full-time with his dad in Tehran.
That stepbrother did?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so, again, he had your dad, you didn't.
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah.
And my dad didn't have a great relationship with me or his stepson. Really didn't. It didn't get a lot of time with either one of us.
Is that what you guys bonded about when you started drinking?
Sort of.
Yeah.
We'd go out and, I really liked him. He was a good kid, but I didn't want to like him.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. That's that loyalty thing that we've already talked about. And there's some guilt in there. You didn't want to move away from mom, didn't want to hurt or jeopardize that relationship with her. So let's connect some dots. When you feel abandoned and hurt and betrayed and you're worried about your mother and you're concerned about her, you retreat from some people, you move toward other people, in this case your mom, to kind of protect and honor that relationship.
And I would say, too, Ron, like Dave had a full life and became really obsessed a little bit with sports. Mm-hmm. And he was good at it.
Threw himself into that.
Is that possible to be obsessed with sports?
Absolutely.
I don't think so.
Oh, it wasn't an obsession.
Okay, so now we're doing a program on denial.
And idolatry, it sounds like.
I don't know what you guys are talking about.
Oh, this is so good.
All right, so perfectionism, not necessarily perfect, but excelling at something that gives you worth.
Right.
Like, I can't get it over here. This is a mess. That's confusing. But, man, I can do this, and I can be really good and matter. So this is where we turn to Ann.
Good.
And
Good.
we've noticed some themes in Dave's life, and understandably so. You know, when you get hurt and abandoned, rejected, keep your loyalties tight where it's good and be distant where it's not good. In moments of distress, pull away, back up, excel at something, have something you're really good at and throw yourself 100% into that thing and do it great, because that's part of giving you identity and meaning, purpose in life. Did any of that carry over into your marriage?
Yeah, I think the biggest repercussion was the ability to resolve conflict in our relationship. And I was 19 when we got married. Dave was 22. And so we weren't thinking about our past. We weren't thinking all these things would affect our present. And yet we would have our fights and he would leave. And that wasn't my style. I grew up in a family that we would talk about everything. We even yell at each other, but still feel secure in the love. And so we would talk about everything. So when Dave would walk out of the room, it would make me furious.
Yeah.
Not thinking, not even having the thought, well, of course he would leave and withdraw. Because conflict is a bad thing to him. He's
Right.
You know, I'm not even connecting those dots. But she would follow me into the kitchen, wherever, and say, we got to talk.
Which
and I
probably
would
just made it worse.
Oh,
worse.
I'd be like, get out of here. What
Yeah.
are we doing?
Yeah.
Because now I know I had this belief about conflict. It's bad.
Right.
You avoid it at all costs.
Right.
It ended in divorce.
I remember sitting on this bed, like he'd left and he went upstairs. He closed the bedroom door and he sat on the bed, and I knock open the bedroom door and I sit right beside him and I put my hand on his leg. And I looked at him and said, we just need to talk. And he said, what are you doing? Get out of here. And I didn't know what to do.
Yeah, so there's a mechanism in him that he grew up doing a lot of. So of course he just continued to do that, and that is in the face of distress and conflict in a really hard situation, you just withdraw, you pull away, you retreat, you go back to where it's safe. And it wasn't safe to be with you in the conflict, so of course he would retreat. But I can totally see how, from your point of view, family, we stay engaged, we talk this out, even if it's hard, we stay. That must have meant that he doesn't love me or something. Now, you said a minute ago, I would get furious. I'm wondering if you were really afraid he's leaving.
To be truthful, I wasn't afraid he would leave, but I looked upon him. I think I disrespected it. I thought, what kind of a man leaves? I had a strong father, and to me, it appeared to be weakness, which, think about how that relayed to Dave.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, what a horrible thing for me to relay to him. I think you're weak,
Right.
which made him withdraw even more.
Exactly. It just led to more of it. And so if he's weak, what's the follow-up to that? Like, if he's weak, then what?
Yeah, I like you're getting counseling now. This is sort of fun.
Turnaround's fair play.
I'm not sure what I think of that. If he's weak, maybe it means I have to become strong. Who will be the strong one in the family? How will he lead me? How will he lead us?
We're not safe and secure
Right.
if he's weak. And there's the fear. See, so there's this huge looming thing that says, oh no, this is going to get bad, this is going to go worse. I don't know how we're going to be safe and secure. I got to get mad so he won't be that way anymore. So furious is how it came out, but fear is what was underneath it.
You're right, and I think I would push his buttons to get a reaction. Anything was better than silence.
To try to get him to not be weak.
Exactly.
And isn't that ironic?
Right.
Yeah.
And that worked really, really well, Ron.
Did it?
Yeah.
I bet it did.
It did not go well. We've shared how hard our first year was in marriage many times. It's in our marriage book, and a lot of it was right here.
Yeah.
I had no idea how the past was coming like a bag of luggage into my marriage. Ann had no idea. And so she's a strong woman, and she was pushing, and I was leaving.
Yeah.
Whether I went to another room or literally just emotionally shut down. Again, not connecting any of these dots. It took years.
Right.
We connected them eventually, but that's where we started.
Yeah. This is why, Bob, I always say you're always working on your marriage because God is always using your marriage to work on you. There's so much about ourselves we don't know until marriage forces us to look below the surface and to wrestle with the deep, deep stuff. I know we have listeners right now going, oh, my word, that's us. I get furious, but I'm really fearful of something. What is that? And they're doing self-examination in a really healthy way. And that's what God wants, is to mature us through our marriages. Of course, if we leave, of course, if we stop, if we abandon or divorce or just check out, we never do the hard work and we never grow up. But when we do, we end up in a totally different place. So let's have fun with this.
Is this fun, Ron?
I was going to say,
is this fun?
This is great. Let me ask the
Fun
two
for
of
Ron.
you. Let me ask the two of you to talk to that younger self, that 19, 20, 22-year-old person who all they knew to do was get furious. All they knew to do was retreat, but they had no idea why. If you could coach them, I mean, what would you say to that younger self at this point?
What I know now, I wish I'd known then. And it is this: you are loved. You are actually secure. Even if it's only your mom's love you can feel at this point or see tangibly, it's real. And there's a Heavenly Father that's there, even though your earthly father, you can't see it or feel it. I didn't know that then. I wish I'd have known it then. And you don't have to become your dad.
Yeah.
In many ways, my withdrawal, even that I brought into my marriage, was a copy of the sins of the father. I'd never read the Bible. I didn't know that was actually in there. When I saw it, it was like a indictment on my life, like, oh my gosh, the man I don't want to become, I'm becoming in many different ways. That could have been avoided if I'd known I was truly, truly loved. And I just didn't know it.
That would have given you a source
A
to hold on
foundation.
to, a foundation to help you perhaps calm down in the midst of all that chaos and anger and conflict with Anne and stay engaged rather than retreat like Dad did.
Exactly.
I think I would have, if I was sitting across from me, I would have reminded myself that marriage is this beautiful agony. It's beautiful in the fact that you learn how to love someone unconditionally, and that doesn't come naturally or easily. The agony is, it's a mirror, and it's showing you your weaknesses and flaws. I think before I got married, I would have never thought that I would be an angry person and I would ever yell. I'm like, I'm so laid back, I'm chill. And this person came out like, who am I? She was always deep down there. It was just the pressure of marriage exposed it. And so I think I would have told myself, be patient and don't be surprised. And here's the biggest thing. Don't expect Dave to meet all of my needs. And don't expect Dave to be just like you. There's a part of me that thought, this is how you should do it. What are you doing? Of course he shouldn't. It's beautiful the way God made Dave. And us having to figure out this whole conflict resolution pattern became one of the best things in our marriage. And so I would say, take your time. Don't be surprised at the baggage you're going to discover. But be looking and then go to God and say, God, I can't do this. Give me wisdom. James 1 says, if any of you lacks wisdom, let him ask God, and he gives generously to anyone who asks.
You've been listening to my conversation with Bob Lapine and Ann and Dave Wilson. I'm Ron Deal, and this is Family Life Blended. You know, Dave's advice to his younger self, he needed to know that he was truly loved. And isn't that something we all feel? And kids, in particular, when they're going through a really hard transition in their life, parents divorce, transition into a single-parent household, transition into a blended family household, kids need to be reassured at every step along the way that they're loved. We all just need to hear that, especially in times when life is uncertain and things seem to be coming apart. Don't take that for granted. Don't assume that your kids know that you love them. They need to hear it over and over. You can't say I love you too much. If you'd like more information about our guests, you'll find it in our show notes. Check it out on the Family Life Blended page at familylife.com/podcasts. We really want to hear from you. Your feedback means a lot to us, and positive online reviews, well, that means a lot to us as well. Subscribe to this podcast on iTunes or Stitcher or wherever it is that you find your podcasts. Just search Family Life Blended with Ron Deal. And remember to look at the show notes for details, links to additional resources, and learn about our other podcasts on the Family Life Podcast Network. And maybe, if you like what you hear, you'll help us spread the word, because you are our marketing department. Think of a couple of friends that you think could benefit from this, maybe a pastor, a ministry leader, and share the podcast with them. And if you're so inclined, maybe you could post something nice on social media about this podcast. We'd really appreciate it. We know you're invested in your marriage and family, so be sure to check out Blended and Blessed. It's our one-day live stream event specifically designed for blended family couples. You can join us live in Minneapolis or be part of the virtual audience on your smartphone, your laptop. It's very easy to stream this for just $19. Your church can host this for a group of couples for just $99. I'm going to be there, and so will Dave and Ann Wilson. They're going to be speaking for us that day, along with Chris Brooks and others. It's going to be a great event. I hope you'll join us. For more information, just go to blendedandblessed.com. Next time, my recent conversation with Shanti Feldhahn reveals that there is good news about the bad news about marriage.
I was a columnist and trying to do a column on divorce, and I wanted to correctly cite the divorce rate. And so as I started looking at the numbers from the Census Bureau and the CDC and the vital statistics and all those, the numbers I was seeing didn't match the narrative. And we're killing marriages with this discouragement unnecessarily. That's a big deal.
Join us next time on Family Life Blended. I'm Ron Deal. Thanks for listening, and thanks to our legacy partners for making this podcast possible. Family Life Blended is produced by Family Life and is part of the Family Life Podcast Network.